Hello, welcome back to Going Walkabout. In the previous episode you saw how I created my trip list in SwiftUI. Unfortunately, there's a problem with disappearing toolbar buttons. And in this episode I'm going to explain what to do if your buttons are disappearing. Now before I'm going to explain how to solve a problem, we first need to see it. So let's go and have a look what is the actual problem. Here I'm running, on the simulator you see my old trip list view. This is still the UIKit view, and if I click here on the trip, we see the trip appearing, and we see here on the right top the buttons for sorting and to create an extra post. We can do stuff here. Now if I go back and if I go to the Explore screen, and this is a SwiftUI screen that is there for a long time, and I go to the same trip, I don't have the buttons. And this is obviously a problem. And the same applies if I go from my notifications to a trip, no buttons. If I go from the same trip from my main screen here, what is this trip, I do have a sort button. Don't have the add button because I don't own this trip, but you see there are buttons. And I didn't notice this, and that's of course a big problem, because what I did is nothing special. This is my trip view controller. This trip view controller is still an old UIKit controller, so I've always used the same logic as I had before, and that works fine. And it also works fine if I navigate there from a UIKit view. As I showed you here, if I go from this old UIKit view. Now what I do, I have some logic. Whether you're an owner, you can add a trip button, you can sort. I set the navigation item, right bar button items to the header items. And this is fine, this works. But unfortunately, it doesn't work anymore when I go to SwiftUI. So let's have a look. Let's run a newer version where I've created the trip list in SwiftUI, and then you will see that I have no buttons anywhere anymore. See, this is the new list. As I explained the previous one, there's always 4 images, otherwise there's a placeholder. So let's go to the trip, no buttons. And the same is true if I go from the Explore screen. Now, it took me a while to figure out what was the problem with these buttons. I have to admit that. But at a certain point I realized it's related to the fact that I navigate from SwiftUI to a UIKit application. And the thing is, when you navigate from SwiftUI, you have direct access in the view controller to that menu bar. If you come from SwiftUI, because you use a navigation view and a navigation link, it actually adds some hidden bar in between. I did have that problem in the past, but I forgot a little bit about it, and that's what is going wrong. Because here you see I'm still adding to the navigation item my right bar button items. There's no error, nothing is happening, but the buttons are just not visible, and that's because it gets overlaid kind of by something that SwiftUI does. So the solution is to go to the actual top bar item. So I need to go back to another version of the product that can clearly demonstrate how to solve that. So let's go and have a look at this newer version of the product. Now in this version I've restructured stuff a little bit, because the thing is that I need to go my header buttons. I have a slightly different logic, because this is already the view where I also implemented my trip header in SwiftUI that I'll cover in the next episode. But what I have my sort logic. I add to my header buttons a button, I add another button, and then this is the actual thing that I used to do before, navigation and right bar buttons. It doesn't work. And now here, due to SwiftUI, there's a double navigation bar, we need the top one. So you need to go to the top item and then you set the buttons. And if you do this, and you need to do that on dispatch on the main queue, because otherwise the user interface doesn't work, now it is supposed to work. So let's see if we can actually run this and see if our buttons are back. And I know you might be struggling with the fact, where did your buttons go? I had it, I figured it out, and maybe it helps you. So let's see where we are now. Now of course it's a little bit more complex if you have a mixed view. I am now in the situation where all my navigations to the trip are from SwiftUI, so I don't need to account for the fact that you can also have optionally navigating from a UIKit view, etc. So now I'm here in my trip list. I navigate and I do have the buttons as expected, and they also work, and it is fine. And also if I go from to this trip that I don't own, you still see I have the button. And the same is true if I go from my Explore screen to that particular trip. I have the same button. So now my button mystery is solved. By doing that, setting it on the top item of the navigation bar controller. And as you can see, the integration between UIKit and SwiftUI is pretty good, but sometimes you run in some, let's say, unforeseen situations where you need to dig a little bit deeper to solve the problem. But for me, it's solved. I'm happy with it. So now I can properly continue working on my SwiftUI progress with the application. And that's in the next episode. We dive into the trip header, how I solved that, and how we continue with that. But I first had to solve this problem because it was bugging me and I needed to share with you what is the solution. If you like it, please like and subscribe. If you didn't like it, subscribe anyway because the next one might be better for you. I'll thank you for watching and I'll see you in the next episode.